welcome into another edition of the Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook. I'm your host, Taylor Kennedy, and thank you all for listening or watching however you may be getting this podcast. You can find us on the audio side by going to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts on the audio side, and by simply going on YouTube. We are on YouTube now by going and searching us up, Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook, where you can see last week's episode along with the 5 episodes that were released in 2023. Again, we're trying to revamp this podcast and try and give you guys a lot of new content as we go throughout the 2024 and 25 athletic calendar year. And we're going to kind of shake things up a little bit. As you can kind of tell, we have a lot going on in today's podcast. Coming up in our next segment, we're going to be joined by the head football coach of the Herbert Hoover Huskies, head coach Joey Fields. They are 2-0 for the first time in a couple of years. They've started 0-2 the last 2 seasons, and they are now 2-0. They beat Independence in week 1 by a final of 37-30. And last week at home, they beat Winfield 29-15 to get back at the Generals after they had split the previous 4 meetings. So we'll talk with Coach Fields coming up. And we'll also talk about a weird coaching method or way that he has been coaching, especially in last Friday's game. We'll talk about that coming up in our next segment. But one of the new things that we're going to try and implement into this podcast throughout the season is our Player of the Week. And as you can tell, if you follow us on social media at GAZ Mail Sports, that's Gaz Mail Sports, or our Facebook page, HD Media Sports, we announce a Player of the Week every week. And what we do is we have the sports writers underneath the HD Media umbrella come together and really vote on who they believe who the Player of the Week was in each week of the football season. We'll do something of some sort when we get into the winter and spring season, hopefully. But week 2 obviously had a lot of fireworks. There were a lot of great performances. Obviously, you can go to Herbert Hoover and what they did with Dane Hatfield and Blake Fisher. But the one guy that kept getting discussed, amongst the sports writers was Noah Velatambi from Hurricane High School. And Hurricane had the big victory over Spring Valley in Putnam County in week 2. Just listen to Noah Velatambi's stats. He completed 12 of 22 passes for 235 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then on the ground, he had 12 carries for 125 yards and 3 touchdowns. So in total, 360 yards of total offense and 5 touchdowns, which earns the senior quarterback for head coach Donnie Mays this week's HD Media Player of the Week. So congratulations to Noah Velatambi on that accomplishment, and congratulations to the Hurricane Redskins on their week 2 victory over the Timberwolves. Again, coming up in our next segment, we are going to be joined by the head football coach of the Herbert Hoover Huskies, head coach Joey Fields. You won't want to miss it here on Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook.
From middle school, I remember having a conversation with my sister and telling her that I wanted to be a counselor.
The passion's always there to help someone who's vulnerable and help someone who needs a little guidance along the way.
I try to find things in common with them. A lot of times for me, it can be anything from not dressing up to just, like I said, meeting them where they're at. Literally, that's our motto. We meet you where you are.
My energy is just, I try to make it feel so welcoming.
I think the big thing with me is it's always what's in the best interest of the client.
I try to be very open-minded. This is whatever you need, I'm here to help you with.
Welcome back into the second edition of the 2024 Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook. I'm your host, Taylor Kennedy. We are pleased to be joined by this week's guest, the head football coach of the Herbert Hoover Huskies, head coach Joey Fields. Coach, welcome to the program.
Hey, thank you, Taylor, for having me. I always enjoy it, man.
Man, you guys have off to a good start so far. You guys have started 0-2 the last 2 seasons. Now you guys have flipped the script, and now you're 2-0 to start the season. What's the vibe like right now in the locker room?
Well, it's good. It's good. I mean, I would take some of those results when we were 0-2, where we finished. But no, it's good. It's taking cliche, but taking it one practice, one game at a time. But that group's doing it, and they're trying to get better and showing the value of practice. And then you see the results on Friday night against 2 very good quality opponents.
Game 1, you guys had to fight back from a 16-point halftime deficit. Yeah. Last Friday, you guys had to go punch for punch with Winfield because obviously you guys have been very familiar with Winfield splitting the last 4 meetings before this year. But what does that tell you about your team whenever you can battle back from a double-digit deficit and also go blow for blow with a really good team.
Yeah, they got a lot of fight, and that group's got a lot of fight in them. And then when you have that type of fight, and then you keep going, things go your way, then you start to believe. And then when you start to believe, then you can play maybe even better than what your ability is. But our guys have worked hard, and anytime you got players like Dane Hatfield and Blake Fisher that can make you right, but we have a group of them. We think we have a very good team this year.
What did you learn about your team last week against Winfield?
Yeah, those are in Winfield, very physical, always physical, and we knew that how tough mentally they are, how physical they are, and we had to match that. And we talked that all week about matching it. Well, before we went out, we told them, hey, let's not match it, let's set it. I thought we did that at times, but when you have a younger group in certain positions, then when you have those injuries happen to you earlier, yes, we found a way, but it makes it tough. I like how we've responded coming out of the half of both games. It says a lot about that group, but we try to practice that way, and we tell them all the time, Monday through Thursday takes care of Friday, and I think this group, because of the leaders that you have in there that's been in there for 3-4 years plus, believe in that. So.
You mentioned your younger guys as well. I know you've mixed a lot of your younger guys with your starters or returning starters on this year's roster. How's that blend coming along this season?
Good. I think that's a locker room that they like each other. They enjoy playing with each other. They enjoy practice. Maybe last year's group didn't always hang together as much. You can see this at lunchtime or when you see them out. A lot of them are together. So the continuity, the camaraderie, you would say, is really, really good. And I think when guys care for each other, they want to play with each other, then you'll start to see that, on Friday nights.
Winfield against Lincoln County ran for over 260 yards. This past Friday, you guys held them below that mark. Run defense, that obviously was a big point of emphasis for you guys.
Yeah.
How pleased were you in that area against the Generals last
Very
week?
pleased. And we've been pleased really even since our first scrimmage with Martinsburg. That gave us a lot of confidence. Still made a lot of mistakes, but at times we stopped the run really, really well. And Steve Stoffel and our defensive staff, Chris Flanagan, Richard Harper, Brian Young, those guys have done a tremendous job. But it starts with us is running the ball and stopping the run. When you can do that, you should have a good football team. Now, the challenge that we face this week is a little different of where that is played. Last 2 weeks been playing a phone booth. Now they're going to play it at a airport. But we're pleased with where we are with we're up front and in the box.
You mentioned that style of play that you guys are going to be playing this Friday.
Yeah.
You guys are playing Nitro at Underwood Field. What are you kind of seeing from Nitro this season?
Oh, that's a talented group. That's a group that can play. You can see them playing it lately in first weekend in December. I think they're that good. Everywhere really they've got players, and they get a lot of flack, Taylor, of the transfer thing. Well, we got it a couple years ago, and that's the way of the land now. And if you don't have them, you probably want them. But that's a good football team, no matter how you cut it. But it's a huge task, and I feel that this is probably top 3, if not the best team that we played in the regular season since I've been here in 5 years.
From a personnel perspective, we talk so often about Josh Moody, but then they got 2 really good skill players, in Malachi Thompson and Eli Littlejohn. So that's a 3-headed dragon right there. You guys have to play on Friday. How do you kind of go about containing 2 of those 3, all 3 of them, 1 of the 3? How do you kind of go about doing that?
It's tough, we played them last year. I think 42-7 game. It was the first game here at the stadium. We were excited to play, but they only had 3 games together. Now they've had a whole season, a whole off season. Those are 3 good players, but it starts with them, but it don't end there. They've improved so much up front on both sides of the ball, and then the secondary, they're really, really good as well.
These first couple of weeks have definitely been challenges for you guys, just in regards to the quality opponents that you guys have played.
Yeah.
It started with Independence, Winfield, now Nitro. How did you want to go about testing your team in these first couple of weeks of the season?
Well, I would like to maybe mix it around, flip it upside down, but it's been like that here for a long time. You started with Scott, you started with Winfield, and at times those teams were down, and they got really good, and that's just how it is. But I think when you play good quality opponents earlier, it allows you, and I know I've said this before, to sharpen your blade. Means you're going to have a better off season. I think you're going to have a better August because you got to get better and you got to get better fast. And for us to fight through what we fought through these 2 weeks and what's coming this week, we know where our team's at really, really quickly. There's some benefit to that, but there's also some, now we're starting to fight the injury bug a little earlier than what we wanted to. But that's football, and I think our guys are continuing to step up.
What's the biggest difference between this year's team and last year's team?
I think you got the right guys in the locker room. You always have, and I don't want to discredit any of that team last year. That's the team that, we lost four or five starters, and that's probably 8 positions on both sides of the ball. But the guys I had up front, and Cole Johnson, Brandon Ramos, Zach Greer, Al Harrison, Brandon Steenberg, I don't want to take away from those guys, but we had a lot of talent, but we didn't practice the same. We're practicing different. We look different. You turn on the film, and our sideline looks different when we make a play and when we don't. I think our mentality is better, and it really starts with our leaders. We tell our leaders, our job as a football coach is to prepare, motivate, and demand, and go back. Prepare, motivate, and demand. Your job as a player is to go play and lead in good times and bad. Our kids are taking that, and it's showing not only on Friday, but you're seeing it in practice as well.
I know in the past, you and I have talked really a lot about your line play, especially your offensive line.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about some of the guys that have stepped up in key positions and key areas for your line through these first couple of weeks of the season.
Yeah, you look at us. We're starting a freshman guard. I haven't done that in probably 14 years. We have one guy back, and in our last 4 years, we've lost 14 seniors or more. And up front, we're replacing each year. But I think with more games, more practice, those guys will continue to get better. But Ethan Patrick, who was a quarterback in middle school, a left tackle, our left guard was a quarterback in middle school. Obviously, Mighty Lopez is our returning center. And then our right guard is a 1-year starter, and Caleb Bowman, who is doing fantastic. And then Connor Facemeyer, who is with us. This is the first year. So it's a lot of new guys. There's some growing pains there. And then, with Ethan Patrick going out, Ryan Gandy stepped in, Jay Butcher stepped in, and we have other guys that I think could do the job as well. But Coach Smith has done a great job with those guys of building depth, because never, Taylor, have I started the season and, there's the offensive line, and it finishes that way. Those guys are beating and banging and bruised up, and but there's no better position to coach and to be around and to lead your locker room than the offensive line.
You mentioned Ryan Gandy, and you took to Facebook yesterday, I believe. We're recording this on Sunday, so you took to Facebook on Saturday.
Yeah.
And you talked about his growth just as not only a person but as a player. Kind of talk about that with the audience a little bit, what he's meant to the team.
Yeah, Ryan Gandy is who you want your locker room to be. It's who you want. I've made jokes with you, Taylor, about I would love if my daughter went to the prom with someone like that, because he's a good boy. And he's a kid that sometimes didn't even start JV, fought for a spot, earned it, and then he lost it very earlier. Well, he could have pouted, went to the side, blamed, quit. He didn't, and we don't win that game without Ryan Gandy and him stepping up, and his teammates knew that. At the end of the game when we came in the locker room, the first thing I said, what about Ryan Gandy? And that locker room is the loudest I've heard it in a long time, because that's the type of person he is every single day. He's not hearing the wrong things at home, and he's not saying the wrong things, whether in this locker room or outside this locker room. To continue on that, we talk about there's 4 fights to a team. And I stole this, like all us coaches, but I stole this from Washington. There's 4 fights to a team. The first fight is you within, okay? The next one is the locker room within. All right, the third one is the outside noise. And then the final one is, if those 3 are taken care of, final one becomes really easy. It's us versus them. And we constantly try to tell that, but Ryan embodies what that is.
We talk about Dane Hatfield all the time, veteran quarterback for you. It seems like each year that we talk, he's always progressing some way, somehow. Yeah. What's different about him this year than whenever you first got him as a baby, as a freshman?
Obviously he's become more coachable. He's become more comfortable in the offense. This is a kid's played a lot of football. But each mistake he makes an even bigger play. But that's the toughest football player, toughest kid I've ever coached. he could go and be our best receiver, our best running back, our best line. He could do it because that's who he is. But Herbert Hoover's very fortunate. Us as a staff, our team is very fortunate to have that guy as our quarterback and our leader in the locker room. But I'm excited. Game 2, I'm excited to see what he continues to do. This is a guy that holds now the school all-time passing record, all-time touchdown, and he's very, very close to all-time rushing. That's hard to do, But no, I'm proud of him and who he is on and off the field.
Another guy we want to talk about is Blake Fisher. Obviously, you guys got him last year. He was a sophomore. Now he's a junior. I talked to him last week. It seems like he's continuing to be comfortable in the program. Yeah. But from your perspective, how important of a piece has Blake been to this program?
Oh, huge. Blake Fisher is a guy that he's one of the best football players in the state. This is a guy, he punted for us, Taylor. Okay, he punt return. Okay, he plays linebacker, runs ball, wide receiver. We're trying to give him the ball every down. He's a football player. And I saw that when we went in joint practice with GW, joint practice with Huntington, and then scrimmage with Martinsburg. He was noticed. He looks different, but man, he's prepared well. But he's a good kid. I hope my son is a lot like him because he's a good kid. What you see is what you get, and the same thing with his work ethic. What you see in the off season, what you see in the weight room, what you see when maybe you're not around, it shows on Friday. And can't say enough about him and the season he's going to have and the season he's going to have next year, just being a junior.
Let's kind of open up the depth chart a little bit and kind of take it from your perspective. Obviously, you've been around this team a lot this year. You talked the 2 joint practices, the scrimmage with Martinsburg, the 2 games thus far. Who's the guy that's immediately popped out to you that you've been really impressed with throughout not only the offseason but these first couple of weeks of the season?
Yeah, Jay Butcher's one is the guy that fought for his spot. Now he's looking, he played a lot of downs, a lot of minutes the last 2 games. He could fight for a spot. I continue to talk about Devin Silvas, and no one practices harder than that guy. And then we like, Talon Harrison's done a fantastic job at linebacker, and we're asking him to do more offensively. There's a big group of, I could say a lot of names, but we got good boys, and they work hard. They got the right attitudes, and when good or bad things happen, they're steady, but. No, there's a lot of guys stepping up. I could probably say everyone because I think as a whole we're getting better, Well,
let's talk about you. And for people that follow me on Twitter, I went to Twitter the night that you guys played Winfield, and you kind of pulled a Dana Holgerson because Dana Holgerson was laying on his stomach one game. I don't remember the exact game, but he was laying on his stomach. And you kind of pulled your own Dana Holgerson, and you're on the sideline laying on your stomach. Was that just kind of like a
outer body experience?
Yeah, exactly.
No, Tyler. What I was really doing was last week we had the rain delay, so I thought, well, if we have another rain delay, I want to get some rest. Here's some time for me to get some rest. So I just took a little nap. No, it is what it is. An outer body experience. No one wants to win more than me, and you prepare like that. You work hard for your kids, preparing them on the field, everything you try to give them off the field, and I'll do about whatever it takes to win. But also, on the side note is we want to become better people. I say all the time, our best players are our best people. But no, on that situation, I would have to go with outer body experience.
Kind of talk about your coaching a little bit. Obviously, this is your 5th or 6th season at Hoover. You were obviously an assistant coach at Martinsburg, and then before that, you were at Mingo Central for a number of years. How do you think you've grown as a coach from when you first started coaching here in West Virginia to where you are today in 2024?
It's day to day. There's times where I'm like, man, I cannot coach anymore. And then there's times where I felt like we did a good job. But you surround yourself with good people, and I've been around good people. I could go on about our staff, but Yogi Kinder could make you believe anything, and this is what we got to do to win, and everyone in that locker room would do it. And then today, Walker, how he made people feel from top to bottom, wherever that ranked, it made you feel you was the most important person in that program. So we try to do those 2 things, but also you got to be who you are. And I think as the years went on, I've realized this is how I have to coach. I'm not for everybody, but I feel that my players that I'm the closest with are the ones I've coached the hardest. And the ones that I've coached the hardest have probably got the biggest have reached their ceiling. And, but that's a credit to good parents, good players that I've been around, and you're able to find some wins along the way.
Talk about this community. Obviously,
Yeah.
the second year in the brand new high school, brand new facilities here at Herbert Hoover High School.
Yeah.
What's the community vibe been like? Not only because of the new facilities in high school, but just the overall vibe and the overall support that you're getting from this community. What's that mean for you as a coach?
Oh, huge, and it's been like that since I got here, and it's only continued to grow. Tyler, you've been to a couple games here. It's second to none, almost to where we dread going away. That I almost have to pep our guys up that, hey, you're not going to have the lights, you're not going to have this. I mean, the dog walk, everything that's out there, tailgating, 4,000 plus people, the light show, the video board, you got a team shop, everything that the band, the cheerleaders, it's what high school football should be, but it's hard to get. And also these two Taylor, is coaching is hard, okay, and there's a lot of sacrifices that you make, but what makes it sweet is Friday nights is seeing everyone come together, win or lose, and building that experience and that atmosphere, and that's the memories that I've enjoyed over the last 16 years, and it's got even better being here on the river. Let's talk about this reclassification stuff. Yeah.
And you guys are similar to GW in a sense of GW it's scheduled to play 5 teams that drop from Quad A to Triple A.
Yeah.
And that hurts the playoff points, and it goes the same way with some Cardinal Conference teams as well. But from your all's perspective, there are definitely some teams that drop down in classification that now hurts your all's your playoff point system, however that works out. But give me your thoughts. I mean, obviously, reclassification, 4 classes in West Virginia, you hear both sides of it. I hear both sides of it. What are your thoughts on it? I mean, does West Virginia need 4 classes?
I think everyone's looking at it through their own lens. If it benefited me, 4 classes. If 3 classes benefit me, 3 classes. And an honest answer, it is what it is. I have not looked at our points. Obviously, I know it's an easy one. Independence was worth 12. Now they're worth 9. Okay, yeah. As that goes down, but at one time we had all 3A. Now it's turned into some double. Maybe we got 1-4 with Hedgesville, but. Yeah, you just play each week, and we tried to schedule best way we can. We wish we would have got an earlier notice on it. Maybe we wouldn't be taking those long trips. We've played some people here in the Valley that we would love to play in the future. But no, I think it'll change again, and I think it will all kind of come out in the wash. But if I'm saying making it simpler, just go off enrollment. Take the formula out, go off enrollment. And then there's really no argument there. Now I know that enrollment, and I said this when I was at Mingo. And it's documented. Is that 800 at Fairmont at that time looks a lot different than that 600 at Mingo. That's the truth of it. That's the fight of it. But that's still just 150 to 200 kids off. It makes it tough. So, I'm not the guy to ask, but I'll tell our players this. Leaders have to make decisions. One thing we can do is if we don't like that decision, we can quit or we can go somewhere else. I think everyone has that hand as well, but we like where we are, and we're making no excuses. If you talked about the old class of 3A, we would be thinking, hey, we're right in there to Okay, now with the new ones, with the Bridgeports, just reality, Bridgeport, Spring Valley, Princeton, of course it gets a lot harder. I'm not shying away from that, but you just take it 1 week at a time. We want to be our best no matter what class we're in when it comes November, because we tell our players November is what they remember.
When you talk about the scheduling portion of things, do you think that will change your philosophy on scheduling teams in the future? Because obviously now you do have to pay attention to those playoff points, but do you think that changes how you will go about scheduling in the future?
Definitely, and I think we're in a position at Hoover where it's a little better than others. Is we're sitting here in the Valley, now you're looking at Riverside, South Charleston, Capital, or St. Albans are now all in 3A. Well, we should all play each other. Does that become a conference? I don't know. Okay, that's for someone else to decide, but we should all play each other. Shorter distance, good competition, okay? And then also both teams are going to make money, and that will only help all athletic programs and their program. So I hope that happens instead of, and I'm looking forward to it. Going back up to the Eastern Panhandle and playing Hedgesville, and where I lived, and my wife's looking forward to seeing some friends and grabbing something good to eat. And then the next week but that would change if we could do that. I think you're going to see a drastic change. But am I right, Taylor, on it's only, and I may be wrong on this, it's only 2 years, or Lately's got a contract to play 4 games for 2 years?
It's something along those lines. You're on the right path from what I've heard, but I think it's something along the lines of they're going to reassess at the end of the school year, and then they'll go from there whether or not they're going to keep the numbers the same. So right now you have 16, 31, 31, and 34, or 36 or something along that line. But I think they're going to reassess everything at the end of the year and then move forward from there. I think, again, like what you said, I think it's just something where you got to take it day by day and just kind of see how it falls out. But
there's no right answer, and somebody's going to be mad, and that's like everything. But speaking on Herbert Hoover and where we're at, we like where we are. When I was at Mingo, we had to beat the Fairmonts. We had to beat the Bridgeports, who just won 3 in a row at that time. We had to beat the Bluefields. So if you're going to be good, you got to go beat those teams. And just like in 4A, there's 16 teams, everybody's in. You still got to go beat the Bulldogs or find a way to try to do that. But so it like I said at the beginning, it is what it is.
And finally, again, you've coached at some really interesting places. Again, Mingo Central, Martinsburg, now Hoover here in West Virginia, just to name a few. But what makes high school football here in West Virginia so unique?
Oh, man, me and my wife were driving. We didn't get to go to the West Virginia game this weekend, but we're driving. We're listening to Caridi talk, and it was just like, man, that's West Virginia. And then West Virginia is so small, and everyone knows each other, and you have a relationship with Tony Caridi or Brad Howe or something yourself. It just feels it matters. It feels bigger than what it is. If I'm making any sense, I love West Virginia high school football, and have friends in other states, in Florida and Texas, and I think our experience in our state is as good as anywhere. I do believe that, and I've seen it get better, and then I've seen it take some bumps, and then I think it will get better because of those bumps.
Well, Coach, good luck this Friday against Nitro. Good luck the remainder of the season, and appreciate you joining today.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. That will do it for this segment. Up next, we'll go through our staff picks and who I pick for Week 3 of the high school and college football season.
From middle school, I remember having a conversation with my sister and telling her that I wanted to be a counselor.
The passion's always there to help someone who's vulnerable and help someone who needs a little guidance along the way.
I try to find things in common with them. A lot of times for me, it can be anything from not dressing up to just, like I said, meeting them where they're at. Literally, that's our motto. We meet you where you are.
My energy is just, I try to make it feel so welcoming.
I think the big thing with me is it's always what's in the best interest of the client.
I try to be very open-minded. This is whatever you need, I'm here to help you with.
Thank you all for joining us. You can find this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. But before we go any further in this final segment, we have 2 great sponsors we would like to shout out, and the first one being Mountain Care Network. And Mountain Care Network was designed to increase accessibility to mental health services and decrease the stigma associated with mental health treatment in West Virginia. Check them out by going to their website, mountaincarenetwork.com. That's mountaincarenetwork.com. And the fine folks over at 5th Street Brewing over on 180 Summer Street in Charleston. Check them out, 12 beers on tap, a wide variety of food options as well. As you can tell, I would not lie to you guys in regards to their food selection over at 5th Street Brewing, so go check them out as well. But in this final segment, we'll kind of do a couple of different things. In this first part of the final segment, let's go back in time now. So over these last couple of weeks, we've been putting together stats leaders in the Kanawha Valley, tri-state area, and pretty much any team under the HD Media umbrella. So that ranges from this area down to Williamston and all points in between. So here are the stats leaders through Week 2 of the high school football season.
contest. My clique is the best. There ain't no one like, cause of you dumb or you crazy. There's no way, G. Me and my clique, we handling biz while you and your clique just act fugazi. You couldn't persuade me to give a damn, it just don't faze me. I got my Xbox, she can't play me. Money in a text box, I get paid. We the best. We the best. No contest. We the best. We the best. No contest. We the best. There ain't no rest. For the wicked I'm bad and I'm blessed. Put it to the test. For the rest there ain't no contest. So what's next? Got me leveling up, I'm obsessed. I bring the fire like I'm possessed. My personnel and my clique is the best. There ain't no contest. There ain't no one like, cause of you dumb or you crazy. There's no way, G. Me and my clique, we handling biz while you and your clique just act fugazi. You couldn't persuade me.
The next piece of the final segment that we would love to chat with you all about, even though I don't really want to give away my picks per se because I've been not doing so hot. As you can tell by looking at the graphic from week 2 and the picks that I had in week 2, I was 6-4 in week 1, but week 2 was not as promising. But as they say with consistency, consistency is key. So I'm 12-8 through 2 weeks, meaning I went 6-4 last week. As you can tell, my first 4 games were all misses, but great games in regards to the high school football landscape. I did get all my college picks right, so I will take that to the bank, as they say. But as we flash up the week 3 picks, let's kind of go through my picks for this week. And starting off with the Calvin Midland GW game, this will be an interesting game. Both teams are still trying to figure out what they have. GW with a little bit more of an advantage in regards to what they have already, knowing they have the right tools and the right positions. Calvin Midland coming off a tough outing over at Jones C. Edwards Stadium against Ironton, Ohio last week. But I like the Patriots in this scenario, up on the hill, home game. I like GW, so give me the Patriots. Riverside Capital, 2 teams that are looking for their first win of the season. Riverside enters 0-2, losses to Greenbrier East and Oak Hill. In Capital, they have not played since week 1 when they went on the road and took on Princeton. I do like Capital in this scenario. I think they have a little bit more pieces, but I think Riverside will make it a game to the end, and I think Capital will eventually pull away in the end and get their first win of the season. Chapmanville and Winfield. This should be a really interesting game. Chapmanville is one of those teams that up and down to start, 1-1 in their first 2 weeks, along with Winfield. Winfield opened the season with a win at Lincoln County, then lost to Herbert Hoover. This is Winfield's home opener, I should say. So I think Winfield will play with a little bit more juice in this game, but I like the Generals in this matchup against the Tigers of Chapmanville. Hoover and Nitro, arguably the game of the week in this area. Hoover coming in 2-0, Nitro same as Hoover, 2-0 as well. I think in regards to being battle-tested, I think Hoover has the edge. Again, they beat Independence 37-30, and then they beat Winfield last week 29-15. Nitro, they have a lot of offensive weapons. You have Josh Moody, Malachi Thompson, Eli Littlejohn. Those 3 right there can really take advantage and really exploit defenses. Hoover did a great job last year of containing those 3, especially in the pass game. So I really like Hoover to repeat the success that they had a season ago, and I think with being battle-tested through the first 2 weeks of the season, I like Hoover in its road game, I should say, against the Wildcats at Underwood Field. So give me Herbert Hoover this week. Buffalo and Polka. This should be a really good game, I think. I think Buffalo, 1-1, they're still playing with a little bit of fire. A little bit of fire under their chip, or a chip on their shoulder, I should say, however you want to say that, as you can tell. Polka, they're entering undefeated, 2-0 in the season, so they'll be playing at 0-0 Stadium in Polka. So I really like Polka in this scenario. Give me the Dots to get the victory over the Bison, a county rivalry as well. And as you can tell from my college picks, I'm going WVU over Pitt in the backyard brawl. I like Kansas State over Arizona, Georgia to pick up the road victory over Kentucky. I like South Carolina as they take on LSU at home, so give me the Gamecocks to win that game. And then finally, Alabama, Wisconsin at Wisconsin. Normally this would be a neutral site game, but I like the Crimson Tide to get the road victory over the Badgers on the road in Wisconsin. That'll do it for this edition of the Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook. Again, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And go to our website, wvgazettemail.com, for all the latest news in regards to high school sports, Marshall University, and the West Virginia Mountaineers. You can also follow us on Twitter by going to our Twitter page, at GAZ Mail Sports. That's Gaz Mail Sports. And check us out on Facebook at HD Media Sports. And I will see you all next week for the 3rd edition of the Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook. And we will have 2 guests, not 1, but 2 guests on next week's edition. You will not want to miss it here on the Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook.